All right, well, let's get started. Thank you welcome actually to the Formless Pilot Series. This is quite exciting for me, and I'm really excited to have you on board and joining the community. There will be more to follow, but as I mentioned to you when you signed up to the community, welcome. And essentially, this is a pilot series, so a 12-week pilot series or 12-part pilot series. The plan is to do it on Friday mornings, 10 a.m. for 30 minutes, keeping it short, sharp, and snappy. However, we can talk about that. So, just a quick intro from me. My name's Belinda Murray. I like to be called Bee, like a bumblebee. And just a bit of background. I have been in corporate for, 20 plus years. Most recently, I was managing director of BWM Isobar and within that business for 13 and a half years, startup, scale up. And so then I took some time out at the end of April last year and took a good 6 months out to essentially recover from extreme burnout, get a lot of perspective, and, born was my business, Formless. And so what we are going to do over the next 12 weeks is really kind of work through how to bounce forward and access high flow in 2023. So today is really just around, well, what is flow? What does flow mean? And I will share with you some of the learnings and, my experiences with accessing this high flow. And what does it mean for you? What does it mean for a business? What does it mean for teams? And what does it mean for individuals? And then I really just wanted to share with you what sort of series I have planned and, what could spark interest. And, would love for you to, invite some people along to join the series. I'm really into being interactive and ensuring that this is fluid. There's nothing worse than sitting through a presentation and you're being talked at. I like for everyone to collaborate. Collaborate is one of my big things. So let's get into it. I first just wanted to play a little video just with regards to Stephen Kotler. So he is the brains behind the Flow Research Collective, which I've done. I've trained with his business. And so I'll just play this video now and then we'll get into it. Okay. Getting all my tech sorted. Just let me know if you can't hear anything.
Flow is often described as a state of kind of effortless effort. We feel like we're propelled through the activity. Everything else just seems to disappear. Time is going to dilate, which is a fancy way of saying it's going to pass strange. 5 hours go by in like 5 minutes. Occasionally, it'll slow down. You get a freeze frame effect. I mean, anybody who's been in a car crash, for example. Intuition tends to get turned up a lot. This is a basketball player in the zone, seeing the hoop, and suddenly it's as big as a hula hoop. And our frown muscles tend to be paralyzed. And what that frowning is a sign that the brain is doing work. This is a constant issue in my marriage where my wife thinks I'm mad at her or somebody. And I'm like, no, I'm just thinking. This is just me thinking. I'm in robot mode. My name is Stephen Kotler. I'm a writer and a researcher, and my latest book is The Art of Impossible. Flow itself, actually, the term is coined by Goethe, who uses the German word Rausch, which means overflowing with joy. Nietzsche actually wrote about flow. William James worked on the topic, but Mihai Csikszentmihalyi is often referred to as the godfather of flow psychology. He was very interested in sort of well-being, meaning of life, and he went around the world talking to people about the times in their lives when they felt their best and they performed their best. Everywhere he went, people said the same thing. I'm in this altered state of consciousness where every action, every decision I make seems to flow effortlessly, perfectly, seamlessly from the last. Flow actually feels flowy. More specifically, it refers to any of those moments of rapt attention and total absorption. You're so focused on the task at hand, so focused on what you're doing, everything else just seems to disappear. But one of the things that athletes talk about a lot is what they call the voice. Often when I'm skiing in flow, I will get directions, right, left, do this, do that. And it's very quick. You either do what the voice is telling you to do, or you tend to crash. The challenge skills balance is often called the golden rule to flow. And the idea here is pretty simple. We pay the most attention to the task at hand when the challenge of that task slightly exceeds our skill set. So to do this work and to get good at it, you have to get good at being comfortable with being uncomfortable. So you want to stretch, but not.
Okay. So I'm going to keep it there. And so, hang on a second, I'm just going to press this back up. So yes, so what is flow? Flow is an optimal state of consciousness when we feel and perform our best. And Mahali C, I'm going to call him MC, that's a very long surname, is the godfather of flow. And so the video really demonstrates what flow is. It's a neurochemically, flow is characterized by the release of 6 performance-enhancing and mood-improving hormones. The norepinephrine, dopamine, anandamine, endorphins, serotonin, oxytocin. And during flow, one part of the brain completely goes offline, and those 6 powerful hormones take over. So it essentially allows your mind to surf the brainwaves on the edge of consciousness and subconsciousness. There's no sense of self. The ego disappears, which is a huge piece in terms of, what our ego is and when it disappears. And there's no room for self-criticism. How good is that? I mean, we're all so good at critiquing ourselves. Or fear or judgment, which is, something that I've really worked through over quite some time, and hence this accessing this high flow. So flow is secondly puts you on a fast track to mastery. So, when you think about elite athletes, the Bruce Lees of the world, from back in the day and even to now, it's heightened awareness, faster processing, and improved information retention. Learning is so much easier and more effective when you're in a state of flow. So what I thought is it'd be great to know who has ever experienced that flowy feeling, and what was your experience like? So to give you an example, the flowy feeling for me has been when I've gone and done, I love reformer Pilates or hot mat Pilates. And I go into this state of, it's a 45-minute class, and quite often it's like this, oh gosh, I'm going to have to do this. But then as soon as I get in there and get into this kind of flow state, I lose track of everything. And then next thing I know, I've looked at the clock and it's 7 a.m. and next thing it's 7:45. So talk me through, has anyone had a flowy feeling before? Okay, brilliant. So, when you go surfing, you're riding the wave, you just said, yeah, thank you, Craig. So that's really interesting that, you get into the zone and into the flow, the flowy feeling. And what did you say, Isabella? Oh, okay, interesting. Interesting that when you're, just writing and you lose track of time and you love to write stories. That's really fascinating. In fact that, you love just to get into the flow when writing. So as you can see, there's a lot of experiences with flowy feeling. Okay, so next, just working throughout but here's the thing, right? The world is more VUCA than ever. So it's more volatile, there's more uncertainty, there's complexity, and there's ambiguity. And we all know this. We're going through, it's going to be more change in the next 10 years than in the last 100. That's what Grant Thornton's called out. We all know it. And it can result in a low flow lifestyle. What that means is high cognitive overload, and we feel we've got a lot of weight on our mind. And boy, do we have a lot of weight on our mind. I mean, everything we're hearing, the news, information overload. But what can also happen is triggers can come to life for flow when we're in a more, world that is VUCA. So what does a low flow lifestyle look like? So this is when you have that fixed informed mindset. You've got this fixed thinking, and it's like you're in that comfort zone and you can't seem to shift it. It's the hustle and efforting, when you're just constantly, chasing things and hustle. Once upon a time, hustle was cool. It's no longer cool. It's like when you're sitting at your desk and you've got to get that presentation done, or you're on deadline and you're just there and you're not giving yourself the chance to get into flow, and you're almost like, oh, am I ever going to get through this? And it feels like it takes forever. We've all received that. Reactive and tactical, that whole constantly, chasing your tail, reactive, you're downstream versus kind of that upstream, and kind of focusing on the bigger picture. Easily distracted. I mean, seriously, how distracted. We've got, so much tech. We've got phone calls, emails, messages, social media. You've got your family, your friends. It's just this constant bombardment. So like, when you're trying or attempting to do some deep work and you're constantly just distracted, that's what low flow lifestyle looks like. When we're working against our biology, when we're actually not listening to ourselves from within, the mind and body and the connection and the nervous system, it does play a crucial role in the way we, live and operate. Lack of clarity, it's like that cloud that just sits over your head and you just can't see the wood for the trees. It's almost like a sense of overwhelm. Frantic rushing and exhaustion. So it's just this constant rushing, in terms of you're just rushing throughout the day, no time to even go to the toilet. Self-orientation. So that's really when it's all about us, and you're not thinking about everybody else and kind of what the greater good looks like. Unfulfilled and lacking motivation. It's really interesting that we're, midway through January, and, pretty much most people generally drop off from their New Year's plans, resolutions, intentions mid-Jan, which is just wild. And flow is rare and random. So we all know this. 84% of people are stressed, 67% burned out, 67% disengaged, 70% chronically distracted, 53% unhappy at work, and 43% lacking clarity. Adriana Huffington, she's talked about that we're in a human revolution. And most recently, it's been called out by Elise Lunan that well-being is no longer enough. It's your whole being. It's your whole being. So really, any wonder we're feeling like, oh my gosh, so with all this information, what do I do? And how do I actually move forward? And this is why we've created this series to kind of really work with you and help you and support you in terms of how you actually can bounce forward. And you can. So like I said before, in times of VUCA, it also can trigger high flow. And it's in uncertainty, it opens us up for more possibility. And, from my own perspective and my own experience, last year for me was huge amounts of uncertainty. But what it really made me do is it really made me push through my fear, and really made me push through resisting accessing this high flow, and seeing that there is so much possibility in uncertainty, as scary as it is. So with that, it's proven that we thrive because of our challenges. We are all biologically designed to overcome them. It's about getting our biology to work for us rather than against us, to bring out the best results in humans and businesses. And so you really do need this formless state of mind. Bruce Lee talks about formless. He means that people shouldn't allow themselves to be trapped in a certain mindset. Instead, a person should be able to adapt to certain situations, grow and change. That's how one can adapt the qualities of water. And really, that's where Formless was born for me, really kind of moving out of this fixed, locked mindset and really tapping into this unlimited formless potential. Okay, and so what does accessing high flow do? Well, it's proven scientifically that, and in research, that we are 500% more productive and motivated, and that's a McKinsey and Co. Research piece. We acquire skills 430% faster. And the University of Sydney did a research piece a while ago and tested this model out. Our creativity spikes at 400 to 700%. How amazing is that? Like that, our creativity, and when we're playing in this space, it just opens us up to like just the limitless potentials, possibilities. Like it's huge. The other great thing is it increases our learning and memory by 200 to 400%. That's that whole sense of mastery. And it also allows us to then live in a high flow lifestyle. You need the formless mindset. It's effortless, efforting versus effortless. Who wants to live in more effortless lifestyle? You're more proactive and strategic. So rather than being downstream and is reactive, you're more upstream in the proactive and strategic. You have this laser-like focus. Your focus is so attentive, and focus equals flow. You have to have laser-like focus to access this high flow. Clarity, you get this deep clarity, that real tapping into your intuition and what is coming from the inside. What is it telling you? You know what the answers are. You're not distracted. It's working with our biology versus working against it. Output orientated, so working collectively, it's more output than my ego and what is in it for me. Pacing and actively recovering, huge. Pacing our way through our days and ensuring that we have this active recovery. And we'll talk about that a little bit later on. We feel fulfilled and we're intrinsically driven. So, there's so much around this intrinsically driven versus extrinsic. I think we get so focused on the extrinsic motivators, but really, really, really what's going to fulfill us the most is when we're intrinsically driven. And it gives us a 50% plus per day in high flow. So huge. And what it does is it brings the best results in humans, all of us here today, and businesses. Like I said, it provides meaning and purpose, motivation, creativity, collaboration, not well-being, but total whole being. Real resilience, that real resilience. You've got this. You can push through that fear. You are fearless. You have this courage. Productivity goes off the roof. The research has proven that. Learning or relearning ways to do things differently. And we have this empathy. We have this empathy for others. We have this empathy for ourselves. So I just wanted to, kind of share this with you. The best of all of flow is it's scientifically researched, measurable, universal, and trainable. How's everyone feeling about this? I mean, we've paced through it a bit. Okay, interesting. Yeah. So the overview of the Formless series, it's really just what the reason we wanted to create this series and offer it to you all is to really start to develop a stepping stone along the way, and look at how we are able to increase the level of flow in our lives and what could be possible for you. And so there is so much content that we can share, and it's limitless. It's limitless in terms of what you can access in high flow. And so, for example, the formless mindset, I've tapped into that. It's really, reimagining. It's that courage. It's that fearlessness. It's that Bruce Lee talking about, the water. The flow triggers, there's actually 22 flow triggers. And these are triggers that can be leveraged by relying on your internal maps and models, and also tapping into the external triggers as well. And that's that's part of this group flow, which is another part of this series that we can share. back to the formless mindset, it's around subtraction and not addition. So subtracting from the mind, taking that weight off our minds to really be able to tap into and access this high flow. Becoming burnout proof, like from my experience, no one wants to go through burnout, but there is certainly ways that you can become burnout proof to actually have to avoid it, to avoid the exhaustion, to avoid chronic stress. Chronic stress plays a huge part in our lives, lives out as ourselves, with our teams, and, through a business. When of peak performance, so back to the surfing, how do you surf the waves of the day? So when are you tapping into and accessing high flow? When are you taking your 20-minute micro breaks? When are you factoring in your active recovery? When there's a need to power up first thing in the morning, and then power down from everything for your day. Peak performance of aging, it's proven that you can teach a dog new tricks, an old dog new tricks. And our peak performance actually starts to decline from the actual age of 25. So hence why accessing high flow is so critical, to continue to nurture, nourish, and ensure that we're keeping our peak performance at our peak. Mind to body connection. There's a huge amount around this in terms of the emotional roller coaster that we go through day in and day out. Our nervous system, from a psychological and physiological place and space. There's heaps within the mind and body. The way our brain works. What actually creates the fear of stepping out of our comfort zone into the formless mindset. Consistency. How do we keep a consistency so that we're not tapping in and out, and 1 minute we're consistent and the next minute we're not? It goes back to your New Year's resolutions or your plans or your intentions. How do you make sure that they're consistently being accessed throughout the year? And that's not being rigid and, kind of sticking to, this fixed way of setting those intentions or those goals, but the ability to fluidly access them. Unlocking pristine clarity. Defending your focus. So how can we help you defend your focus so that you can get that focused attention to access high flow? Leverage. It is infinite. Time is fixed. So how can we achieve nonlinear outputs? How can we leverage anything that will boost productivity? Active recovery. Active recovery is a huge piece. Active recovery isn't just sitting on the couch, scanning your phone and watching social media or watching a movie. Active recovery is getting out, going for a walk, meditating, actively mastering a new skill. It really is around switching off, getting yourself to have your biology work for you. Motivation for flow. How do we get those intrinsic motivators, that passion and purpose driving for us? How do we really get ourselves feeling fulfilled? Being your authentic self. How do we ensure that we're our authentic self? Like we talked about earlier, there is so much going on in the world and so much information and content. It's really important, from a formless sense, that we really are true to who we are. True to who we are, so we can really access and tap into this high flow. Group flow, it's a collective team for flow. Studies show it's our favorite experience on earth. So, for example, when you go to the footy and you're watching your favorite footy team, my favorite footy team is Collingwood. My experience has been when I've pitched on new business and we've won, and it's just been this magical, group flow of team chemistry, energy, this formless energy. Brainstorming was created in the 1950s, and group thinking is an illusion of group effectiveness. In group flow, you cannot know the outcome in advance. Problem-finding solutions. Problem-finding solutions use the formless part of the brain, applying curiosity and creativity to work with the problem to find the solution. Creativity and pattern recognition. There's a huge amount of within this creativity and pattern recognition. And that's really around, just lost track. There's always a better way to do something. There's this thing called the 3 Bs. Bend what we see, break apart what we sense, and blend it all together in a brand new way. You actually need both sides of the brain to be creative. Everyone talks about the right brain, the left brain, and analytical versus emotional. You need both. You need both sides of the brain when you're accessing high flow. And building a high flow culture. How do we build a high flow culture to redefine success? To bring out the best in humans and results. I think I missed presenting in flow. I knew there was one I missed. This is fascinating. This is really fascinating in terms of, we've always been told to think before we speak, but what if we just spoke? What if we just spoke when we were presenting? What if we just spoke in flow? You talk to the segments that you need to talk to. Then you pause in those gaps to allow that clarity and that flow to come back. It's really interesting when you're presenting and you stop and pause, allow the gap, and then you go again. And the flow just comes back and you almost lose track of what you're talking about. It's fascinating. So what I would love from all of you is to really just see when and where you access this flow without even noticing it. Jot it down, share it with your team. And what I'd love also is if you, for our series, why don't you invite someone from your team along, or a friend, or someone in the business? This is really about sharing and testing out this pilot series and really getting, kind of what you think and how you feel about tapping into and accessing high flow to bounce you forward in 2023. So hopefully you found this super useful. There will be more coming from the community, the Formless community, and I will be sharing more and more with you all. And I really appreciate the people that have joined so far. Like I said, my business is the business is really just kicking off, and we're super excited that you've joined the Formless community. And we're here to support you and get you to tap into and access high flow through that formless mindset. So thank you. I said I'd finish right on 10:30. It's just on 10:30. Have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful weekend. And I look forward to seeing you all next week. Thank you. Bye.